Throughout the year 2025, I have watched a total of 36 movies and TV shows. Hello everyone, my name is Alex Manny, and in today's video, I'm going to rank every single one of those movies and TV shows from worst to best. If you're worried about spoilers, this will be a spoiler-free video. I hope that a lot of you are doing good, as I'm not doing too bad myself. And without further ado, let's start this video all the way back in 1981 with The Fox and the Hound. The Fox and the Hound is an old Disney movie which was a book originally written by Daniel P. Mannix. The film follows a fox named Todd, who was left abandoned by his mom during a scary encounter with a hunter. After being abandoned by his mother, he was later rescued by an old lady with the help of an owl and two little birds. On the other side of this area, the hunter adopts a hound named Copper, who was basically being trained to hunt other animals like the other dog named Chief. Later in this film, Todd and Copper cross paths and become best friends. But as time goes on, Copper has to leave home with his owner to hunt during the winter. Years have gone by, and the boys are grown, but Copper is back with a new mentality, and their once so-called friendship is starting to fall apart. This is a pretty simple synopsis of the film, as I try my best to put it in one little segment, but dare I say, I actually love this film. The film follows the theme of not all friendships are perfect, and that people change, and that is the harsh truth that we have to accept. But knowing that this is a book that was later made into a Disney movie at a time that none of us were even born is truly amazing. And when you look at all the movies that Disney has put out and you compare it to this movie, that just really shows that Disney does not really hit the same anymore. Final rating of this movie, I really adored it and I really recommend it. It's not a perfect movie per se, but it is enjoyable and gets emotional at some parts. Now let's move on to our first show of the video, which is Dexter. Dexter is a thriller series that focuses on the main character named Dexter Morgan, who is a blood splatter analyst for the Miami Police Department. The thing about Dexter is that he's also a serial leader who was given the name the Bay Harbor Butcher. What makes Dexter different from other fictional serial leaders is that he only deletes people who are guilty of their crimes. No one around him knows about his double life, not his colleagues, his girlfriend, or his sister. But as the show goes on, secrets about his life later gets revealed, and a fellow cop named Doug starts to get suspicious of Dexter due to his mysterious behavior. This show is very interesting and gets a lot of unnecessary hate from the people that don't like it, and I just don't know how. I've seen a lot of comments saying that Dexter gets bad after season 4, but after watching the full series, it really didn't. Dexter is absolutely perfect with the exception of season 3. I really didn't like the storyline, but other than that, it is truly amazing. It is very early on in this video, but I will say that Dexter is not only in the top 10 of one of my favorite shows of this year, but in the top 3. So as this video goes on, I will tell you what shows are in the top 10 and which one are not. So be aware of that. And as of now, Dexter is on there. And bro, I really miss my Dexter era. It was just this past July, and I really loved it and I really enjoy it. It has such an interesting plot and a very, very good acting from Michael C. Hall. And because of that, we have our first S tier video, and it's soon going to be big. The next show on our list is not only our first anime, but also another show in the top 10, which is Death Note. Death Note is a Japanese anime where it follows the story of Light Yagami, a young straight A scholar student who finds a notebook called the Death Note, which was dropped by a Shinigami named Ryuk from the Shinigami realm. Shinigami means death god, by the way. The Death Note is simple. You can delete someone if you know the name of the person and have the face of that person, but once you use it, you would not go to either heaven or hell. You would go to a place of darkness. But that doesn't stop Light from wiping out criminals in this area and later gets investigated by the authorities. But because they can solve it, they had no other choice but to get L involved in the case. By this time, Light later gets nicknamed Kira, which means the leader in Japanese. And this war between Kira and L is going down until one falls. That was the best way I could put Death Note in a small summarization, and boy oh boy did I enjoy the show. Now for some lore, just because I want to put it out there, I did this thing on my Instagram, go follow me by the way, for my followers to vote on what shows I should watch next, and it was between 4 shows: All American, Dexter, BoJack Horseman, and Ginny and Georgia. Ginny and Georgia was supposed to make the final cut, but there was something in my head that said, put Death Note in it. And I did, and I did not regret it. Now, I'm not hating on Ginny and Georgia. I just had a lot more confidence in Death Note on it being a good show. And matter of fact, it was a great show. In all honesty, throughout the first 20 episodes of this show, I really thought it was mid. But the final 5 episodes were truly amazing. If you watch Death Note, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's a moment in this series that happened, and right after that moment, it just became completely mid. Death Note was nearly a top 15 show, but by the time I finished it, I knew it had to be in the top 10. I even felt like rewatching it, and honestly, it was a lot more better than the first time. I'm not even joking. When I first watched that finale, absolutely goosebumps and I got the chills. And as for Ginny and Georgia, that is a show I have on the watch list for this year, 2026. But I will make a deal for y'all. If, and this is a big if I find Ginny and Georgia better than Death Note, I will be here and say that I regretted my decision by putting Death Note over it. So that's really all I have to say. But other than that, Death Note is a top 10 show, but I'm going to put it in the A tier. It's not an S tier because the show does become mid and does catch up the momentum in the later episodes, but I still think it is a good show. And if you're someone who's getting into anime, Death Note is the perfect show to watch when you're getting introduced to this new world of media. Now moving on to our next show, we have once again another top 10 show. And if you watched the show before, you'll know exactly what I mean. And this show is Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad follows a high school chemistry teacher named Walter White, played by Bryan Cranston, and he finds out that he gets diagnosed with lung cancer. He stays quiet with his wife and kid with his information and knows that with his teacher's salary, he can't really provide them when he passes on. So the last thing he goes to is start cooking blue candy, and he even goes as far as to team up with his former student named Jesse Pinkman, played by Aaron Paul, because he knows the candy industry better than Walt. The team up goes according to plan, and the two cooks later get into drama with other people in the industry, knowing that they won't make it out alive if they aren't smart. What an amazing show Breaking Bad was. By the way, if my shirt changes throughout the video, that's because it was filmed on different days of the week. The first part was filmed back on Sunday, and today's Wednesday, but I'm really trying my best to put this video out for all of you to watch. But that was such a simple synopsis to a show with such amazing seasons. I'm not saying Breaking Bad wasn't amazing in the first season, but if you watch the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's like the show gets better throughout the show. I know it's weird, but you know what I'm talking about. Breaking Bad will probably go down as one of the best shows of this past decade, and will be as time goes on. Breaking Bad has such an amazing story, cast, acting, and ending. I was really thinking about how to conclude a show like Breaking Bad, but it was truly satisfying. That is the one word I could describe the finale of Breaking Bad: satisfying. Bryan Cranston has gave it his all, and as I said before, Breaking Bad is not only in the top 10, but also in the top 3 along with Dexter. But I also gotta give other actors like Anna Gunn, Aaron Paul, Dean Morris, and some other people that I haven't named yet, those guys deserve their flowers. Because wow, the best acting I have seen in a long time. Therefore, Breaking Bad is joining Dexter as an S tier show. Now moving on to our final piece of media in the 2000s, we have a movie that I absolutely love, and that movie is Fantastic Mr. Fox. Fantastic Mr. Fox follows the story of a fox played by George Clooney, and after 12 years, he gets a new home in a treehouse with his wife and son. Knowing that Mr. Fox is a fox, he has this knack of raiding, and that's something his wife doesn't like. But he does it anyway, and not only does it put his family in danger, but the whole town in danger by the town's known hunters, and it's up to the one and only Fantastic Mr. Fox to fix this problem. I know it wasn't the best summary that I could put, but that's why I took it from the film, because it was a lot more than that. There was a great message in the film, but not only that, but the cinematography. This movie was made as a stop motion, and Wes Anderson is the GOAT for doing that. Like, look at the behind the scenes footage on how the movie was made. Usually voice actors get put in booths, but Wes had some ideas to not only make this movie good, but fun. This movie really meant a lot to me as I just turned 18 this past year. Yes, I know I'm getting old, alright? I know myself, okay? I'm getting old. So after cutting up my birthday cake, I grabbed a piece and put on this movie because it just really means something special to me. This movie has the feeling of comfort and being relatable at times. So other than that, Fantastic Mr. Fox is a must-watch movie. It has a packed cast like Willem Dafoe, Owen Wilson, and Bill Murray. And Fantastic Mr. Fox deserves a spot on the S tier. Now moving on to the 2010s, we have ourselves a banger. I waited so long to talk about the show, and if you watch it, you know exactly how I feel, and that show is Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan is a Japanese anime adaptation from the manga series written by Hajime Isayama. The story follows a young boy named Eren Yeager, and he is protected in the town along with his friends and family with walls around them from the man-eating Titans. However, the walls managed to get broken into, which has left many civilians dead, and Eren gets a new desire to exterminate all the Titans, no matter what. What a journey the show was. I have to get out of the way, but I'm going to say that this is one of the best shows I have watched, not just in my 2025, but my whole life. This show is much more than the small synopsis I gave, because wow, I will do anything to watch Attack on Titan for the first time ever. This show gave me emotions that I never felt about a show before, and if you watch Outer Banks, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but the way that the last season ended, it had a lot of people in tears, but it had me straining my TV like this. I know there's a lot of sad moments in Attack on Titan, and they really had my heart broken. It was this one part in the first season where they were in the woods. If you watch Attack on Titan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I nearly cried at that part, bro. And my friends were like, "Bro, why you don't want to cry? They're nobodies." It doesn't matter if they're nobodies. It's just being put in the position where they at, where they have 50 feet man-eating titans and ready to eat you. And like, no one wants to die in that situation. No one wants to die in that situation. But Attack on Titan gets a lot more crazy because the writing is absolutely insane. Like, the ending of the series is like a plot twist within a plot twist. Mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing. My advice, if you're gonna watch Attack on Titan for the first time, watch it consistently. Do not put a pause button in. You have to watch it consistently because there's a lot of like parallels. The plot twists are going crazy. I won't even go as far as that the first episode of the series matters, because when I saw that one part, I was shook. I was like this. I was like this, bro. I can't speak. So yeah, every single episode matters. And this show has such lovable characters going from Misa, Armin, Hanji, and of course the mother effing goat, Captain Levi, bruh. I know I missed out on other characters like Sasha, Erwin, Connie, and John, but every single one of those characters, you're gonna love them. And there's no plot armor, so any of these characters could die at any moment. So I would be cautious on who to choose to be your favorite character. But other than that, Attack on Titan is one of the best shows I've watched, not just in my 2025, but my whole life. And this 100% deserve an S tier. Matter of fact, I'm putting Attack on Titan on a league of its own. I truly do believe that Attack on Titan is better than Breaking Bad, and I know there's a lot of arguments about that, but I'm one of those people that's on the Attack on Titan side. Oh yeah, just to put it out there, 5 of these shows in the 2010s are in the top 10 list. Because the next show we're going to talk about, it is a back-to-back on the top 10 list, and this show is BoJack Horseman. BoJack Horseman is an adult-rated sitcom about a washed-up actor named BoJack Horseman, who was a part of a popular sitcom show called Horse and Around. And ever since then, he has entered the world of substance and mental health issues as he tries to make a comeback by teaming up with a ghostwriter named Diane. A good synopsis to the show, and I'm going to try my best not to be emotional in this part, because this show is very relatable. A good reason why I've been gone from my content is because I was just going through a lot of mental problems in my senior year, and senior year was such a stressful time with college applications and graduation and passing my classes, so I really did not have the time to make content. So I'll just say here, originally I was supposed to make like a separate video that was talking about my mental health, but I really didn't have the courage to. And if you follow me on Instagram, you would know that I lost someone who really meant a lot to me. And when I heard the news, can y'all guess what show I was watching at the time? It was BoJack. It was BoJack Horseman. I was watching that show, and I heard the news that they passed away. It didn't really hit me until like 2 nights later. And whenever I think about BoJack Horseman, I just think about her. You know, it's really a mental problem. It's a mental battle that I've been going through for a long time. I am good now, but just to think about BoJack Horseman, I automatically think about her. So yeah. And yes, I've seen all the edits, but I've seen the edits way back in 2020. I was watching BoJack back in 2020, but I really didn't have the commitment to watch BoJack. And also knowing that I was watching at a time where yes, I was facing a lot of mental problems, but it wasn't like BoJack Horseman like me now, where when I think about BoJack, I think about someone who passed away who meant a lot to me. But when thinking about BoJack, seeing all the edits, like the funeral and all the stuff like that, and all the characters that died, I just think about myself. I think about my life. It's absolutely mentally draining for me. I know I'm getting a little too personal, but this is a show that everyone on camera really has the mental problem. If you're really going through something, just know that I have problems too. I'm human. I have feelings. I have a heart. I have feelings. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's what I want to tell you all. And just know that yes, there have been times where I'm depressed, maybe a little too depressed to think about my life, if I even wanted to be here. And if you're going through that, just know that it will get better. Whenever I'm feeling down, I just listen to music or watch TV shows or talk to my friends or play games and all that stuff. And that's really how I cope with my depression. Yes, BoJack is a comedic sitcom, but there are moments in the show where it just gets a little too deep, and maybe think about, I relate to BoJack, or I relate to characters in the show like Mr. Peanut Butter or Diane or Todd or Princess Carolyn, all those people. BoJack Horseman really does something that I think a lot of shows don't do. And that's where I say that people don't really make shows like BoJack Horseman anymore. I'll even go as far as that people don't make shows like 13 Reasons Why. So yes, BoJack Horseman is more than a comedic sitcom. It's a way of life. Therefore, I'm giving BoJack an S tier because of how good of a show it was. Don't let the genre fool you for it being a comedy because it gets extremely deep. Now moving on to our next show that's also in the top 10 list is The Good Doctor. The Good Doctor is an American adaptation of the South Korean version of the show. The show follows a young autistic doctor named Sean Murphy. Sean joins a new group at a very popular hospital called San Jose St. Bonaventure. As he joins the hospital, he gets a lot of criticism because of a disorder. But that doesn't stop him from being the best surgeon that he can be. This was such an emotional roller coaster ride for me. I've talked about this in my socials before, and if you know me personally, you do know this about me. But me saying this on YouTube and saying this to hundreds of people, maybe even thousands or hundreds of thousands if this video goes viral. But I'm here to say that I also have the same diagnosis as Sean Murphy. I grew up with autism. I never knew that I had it until my freshman year of high school. And ever since that day I learned about it, it changed my perspective of life. I was familiar with the disorder before, but knowing that I had it, it just hit me. It really, I don't know how to describe it, but it really made me feel different, you know? I know that's what it means, but yeah, it made me feel different about myself. The Good Doctor is an amazing show, and it really explores more than the world of autism. There was an episode where Sean Murphy had to get a lawyer because he was facing troubles, and the lawyer that represented him, she has OCD. And matter of fact, they were supposed to make a whole spin-off series about her, but because of the writer strike that happened back in 2022, they canceled it. And they explored not just OCD, but also other stuff like religious beliefs and the LGBTQ community. I really give praise for that because the whole story is supposed to be about Sean, who has autism and he's trying to be a surgeon. But knowing that the show really explores more of the real world, I really give its praise for that. And knowing that I can relate to Sean because there are times where he's told hey, he's not good enough. You know, we can't have a person like him to do operations like this. And he never listens to the criticism. Every character that he's met, especially on day one, they always say the same thing. But once they learn to know him, they know what he's capable of. And listen, whether you have autism, OCD, ADHD, and you have a lot of people saying that you can't do anything because of your disorder, don't listen to them. Back in high school, I would do IEP meetings, and I absolutely hated it. I knew what their intentions were, but they really made me feel like I was dumb. You know, I know their whole role was to make me feel I'm not dumb, but if anything, they made me feel like I was dumb. In college, there's also the same thing called OSD, Office for Disorders. And in my last IEP meeting, they told me to go to the building to get my information and all that stuff. But guess what? I didn't go. I didn't go to the building. I was really thinking about in my orientation for my college, I went to the building to get my ID. And in that same building, they had the department in there. And I was like, should I? Nah, I didn't want it. I didn't go. Because guess what? Just imagine doing the same thing in high school but at a college level. That would be so stressful. I know a lot of you are asking, why didn't you go if it was good for you? Because I'm not stupid. Now, I'm not saying that the people who need the OSD are stupid, but if you truly believe that you are capable of doing things of your own and you don't want having people say things about you and say that you should do this, you should do that, then don't go. Really don't go. I know it has some advantages, like you get extra time on exams and all that stuff, but I don't need that. And also, why would I want advantages if I know what I'm capable of? And I don't want people to think that I'm just because you have this, because you have a disorder, you get to have more time, you get to more this and that, and none of us can have it. It just doesn't seem fair to the people when I want to go through what people are going through, like the regular, normal college students are going through. And that's the beauty of The Good Doctor. You're smart and you're capable of doing things on your own, and don't let anyone tell you what to do. I also want to put the fact that The Good Doctor had a beautiful ending. If it weren't for Attack of Titan and Breaking Bad, The Good Doctor probably has one of the best endings I've seen so far. The last season had the least amount of episodes because every other season averages the amount of 20 to 22 episodes. And knowing that the last season was very short, I was really thinking how can they end this? That's how you end it. That is how you end this masterpiece. I'm really happy that there's a show like The Good Doctor because it really spreads the message about autism, and not only is it about autism, but it explores, race, religious beliefs, sexuality, other disorders that people have like OCD or ADHD. And therefore, I'm going to give The Good Doctor an S tier. And it is part of my top 10 of this year. Now taking a little break from shows, we have our first horror movie, and this movie absolutely ruined me. And this horror movie is Hereditary. After the passing of the mom's grandma, the family starts to experience unusual activity. As time goes on, the mom starts to go through an emotional rollercoaster ride and starts to find out new information about her mom that left her in absolute shock. And this doesn't affect herself, but also her family. Yeah, I didn't know the best way to describe this movie, but this movie was absolutely insane. It's been a while since I watched a good horror movie, but I'm not saying that Hereditary is one of the best horror movies out there. I know some people might make that argument, but I really don't. But I had a good time watching it. And I also watched this movie at midnight, and it was such an experience. Watching horror movies at night is honestly one of the scariest things that you could ever experience. This movie is pretty supernatural, and I'm not really one to watch horror movies like that. I'm more of a slasher horror movie guy, and yeah, this movie was insane. As said, this movie isn't the best movie out there, but it can ruin you. So I do recommend it, but be aware of what time you're watching it. Therefore, I'm going to give Hereditary an A tier. There were some things that, I wouldn't say I didn't necessarily like. It just wasn't perfect. Now going back to the TV show route, I'm going to talk about All-American. All-American is a drama TV series that was inspired by true events that followed a young wide receiver prospect named Spencer James, who grew up in the neighborhood of Crenshaw, Los Angeles, and gets recruited by Beverly Hills head coach Billy Baker and gives a promise that one day Spencer James will play in the NFL. Before getting to the review, I want to tell a little story time. If you know me, I love football. And matter of fact, my first ever YouTube video was a football video, okay? So you will understand why I would watch a show like All-American. So I showed my friend a list of all the shows that I would watch throughout the year 2025, and they saw All-American on it, and they were like, oh, let me know how you feel about All-American. I really like that show. Mind you, this friend has never watched a single snap of football. So I pointed that out, and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think I would like it, but I really like it. So I didn't think much of it, and as I said before, where I posted a story on my Instagram on the votes of what shows I should watch next, and it was shows between, All-American, Dexter, BoJack Horseman. It was supposed to be Genie in Georgia, but I changed it to Death Note. And I know a lot of you are still mad at me if you're a Genie Georgia fan, but chill on me for a second. And my homegirl saw that. And not only did she like the story, but she voted for All-American. And I was like, bro, this person has never watched a single snap of football either. But I think one of the things that made me think about it is that her brother plays for a high school football team. So I was like, well, maybe her brother put her on. So I don't know. So I didn't think much of it. But an old friend of mine who watches football not only voted for All-American, but he replied to the story saying, bro, All-American's fire. And I was thinking to myself, am I missing out? Me, a football fanatic who spends all his Mondays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays by myself watching football. I was thinking to myself, wow, am I really missing out on a good football show? So guess what? I finally watched All-American. And bro, All-American is absolutely ass. It was ass. Now with the whole synopsis I gave earlier, it really sounds good on paper. But if you're like me and who watched the show, I was so disappointed. So characters in the show involve Jordan, the quarterback for Beverly, Olivia, who is the sister of Jordan, but also who's struggling with a substance addiction, Layla, the daughter of a popular label owner, and Asher, who is the other wide receiver at Beverly. And then there's Spencer with his friends and family like Coop, his mom, his little brother, and of course you gotta add in Billy Baker along with his wife who is a lawyer. Okay? This show is absolutely one of the dumbest shows that I've watched this year. And the fact that it involved football was absolutely stupid. And here's the thing. This show was made by the CW. The same network that made Riverdale, The Flash, Green Arrow, just to name a few. You watch The Flash before, you would know that the first couple seasons were peak, okay? But in the last seasons, I stopped watching them because they just got very uninteresting. And I think that's the fact. The CW keeps milking these shows to the fact that we don't care anymore. I never cared about All-American, even from the first season. I thought it was I didn't mind it. I was watching the show, I was like, that's pretty cool. But throughout the next couple seasons, I really didn't understand it. I really didn't. And mind you, this is about a prospect receiver trying to make it to the NFL. And the fact they made 8 seasons about this, And here's the thing as well. Like, I'm pretty sure in season 2 and 3 focuses on 7-on-7 football. That was dumb. I really did not like that. And I would like to act the fact that Spencer is just very selfish. Like, this man is always complaining and whining about not getting the ball because he's the prospect receiver. But guess what, Spencer? There are multiple positions other than you. You are not that guy. Maybe you are the guy in your own world, but in the coach's eyes, in the player's eyes, you are not that guy. Mind you, in football, there are other positions like a wide receiver 2, a wide receiver 3, a running back, a fullback, a tight end. And if Jordan wants to be like a Lamar Jackson, he can use his legs. He can use his legs. Like, you're not that important. And you want what pissed me off even more is that this show is based in the neighborhood of Crenshaw. They decided to make gang members and gang rivals like Bloods and Crips as a subplot, okay? And I'll say this, the first reason we'll come back later in this video, so stay tuned for that. But it's just the fact that whenever a show that involves like black people, they always want to make, you know, gang members and gang violence as a subplot and all stuff like that. Bro, this is not the 80s anymore. No, it's not like Boys in the Hood or Straight Outta Compton. This is like, this show, you can tell by this show, this is like based in the 2010s. I was born in 07, okay? And don't let me asking, why does this matter to you? Because I live in Exposition Park. That's like 20 minutes away from Crenshaw. I don't hear any like gunshots or anything like that. I don't hear the news about gang violence. I really hate this show because it really shows like false, like kind of like false advertisement, okay? Crenshaw and Exposition Park is not like a gang or a hood or anything like that. And that's what pissed me off. So I went to high school in Venice, okay? And the high school football team was getting ready to play Crenshaw at Crenshaw. And it was junior year. And I remember this girl in my first period class, my intro data class, okay? And she was saying something like, oh, protect the cheerleaders so they won't get shot. At the time, I didn't think about it. But now I know. A lot of y'all watch too much All-American. It is shows like All-American where they make fun or they come up with random rumors and all this stuff about my hometown. One of the big reasons why I want to come back to YouTube is because if you look at famous birthdays and you search up Exposition Park or Crenshaw or anything like that in that area, you would know that there's nobody. You know, if you search up like stuff like Hawthorne, you will see Tuv, Tyler Creator, and all that stuff, other people like that. But when you search up Exposition Park or Crenshaw, you don't see anyone like that. So I feel like it's my job as a content creator to make content and to blow up and to give the love that my hometown deserves, okay? Because another thing I want to point out, I go to Crenshaw a lot. I go to the Crenshaw Mall to watch the movies. I go to Crenshaw to get Chipotle with my mom. To get Chipotle for Pete's sakes. And there was never a time where we were robbed. And to go back to the mall, me and my friends, we watched a movie that will be later and discussed in this video. We walked all the way from the Crenshaw Mall to my house here in this room. And we were not robbed. We were not shot at gunpoint. We didn't face anything. The most we saw is like homeless people, okay? That's the problem with All-American, is that it focuses on so much of this media that doesn't exist. I'm not saying that gang members exist. I'm just saying that like putting it in in a setting that means a lot to me, and they say this is happening here. I have lived here for 18 years. Never in my life have I ever heard gunshots or heard things about, like I said before. And just go back to the show. This show has 2 seasons that don't even focus on the actual story. And a lot of these characters, like in the later seasons, they don't really have like a connection to Spencer's story. I really think that this should be Spencer's and Spencer's only story. Like, yes, you can have people on the football team, and if he wants to have a girlfriend, you know, it could be one of the girls. But don't make gang members and all this other stuff like a subplot. Just focus on the actual story itself. And the acting is so terrible. There was this whole segment about like the whole I'm pretty sure like this police officer shot and killed a girl. There's this whole thing where Spencer's like, she was one of ours. Such a bitch. But like I said before, with the whole me with famous birthdays and me being a content creator, I had a talk with my friend in my econ class, and we were like saying stuff about like, oh, when you think of this place, you think of that person. You know, for example, when you think of Hawthorne, you think of Tyler Creator. When you think of Compton, you think of NWA. This is my job as a creator to spread the word that, no, all of the stuff that All-American shows is not real. None of the stuff that what All-American focus on is not real, okay? And yes, this may not be the safest place on earth, but I could guarantee you that there are no gang violence here. And I also want to put the fact that like, oh, like the police and everything like that. The police have their job. Their job is to patrol and to take calls whenever they need to help people out. Okay, just because cops are here doesn't mean that like, oh, it's of course because of the gangs and all that stuff. It's not, bro. Those police officers, they're doing their job. They're doing their job. I also want to put the fact that Crenshaw is slowly dying. As I mentioned before, the foot traffic at the mall is so small. Like when I go to the movies with my friends or by myself, all that stuff, there's really not that many people because I think it's just the fact that All American and other pieces of media keeps putting out false claims that no, this place is dangerous. This place is not where you want to be. That is bull, man. That is absolutely bull. So trust me, when I blow up, I will mention the fact that greatness could come from anywhere. But other than that, All American is the second worst show that I have watched this past year of 2025. And yes, I said the second, meaning that there's another show on this list that pissed me off even more than All American. And I'm here to say that All American is the first D tier of the video. Now moving on to a show that was trash to good, getting our groove back to a show that's also in the top 10, and that is The Rookie. The Rookie is a drama and comedy show about a middle-aged man named John Nolan, who joined the police department in Los Angeles as he was named the oldest rookie. And because of his age, he not only faces criticism, but he also has to face tough challenges and life-ending threats as time goes on. So before watching The Rookie, I had this fear that I would like it better than The Good Doctor, but once this segment ends, I will talk about that. So The Rookie, I really liked it. Matter of fact, I loved it so much that it made it in the top 10, but it has a lot of flaws in it. This show is meant to be a dramedy, but I really wish that the show would take itself a lot more serious than it being like a comedy show most of the times. But the thing about being more serious is that it takes a lot of unrealistic routes, and people who don't like The Rookie basically make that claim that like it's very unrealistic. And which I get, but I really don't know what the show could do to make it better for those type of audiences. So this show is based on the LAPD, and they face a lot of like villains that are like terrorists or cartel members. And if you know real law, I don't think the LAPD really focuses on those type of people. That's mainly like federal agents, like FBI and all people like that. But so like when you watch shows like The Rookie, and they have the characters like act like they're part of the FBI, and it's like aren't you supposed to be officers? Like you're supposed to be on patrol in LA and all this stuff. You're not supposed to be dealing with all this stuff. But I really don't care. As long as it's watchable, then I'm chilling. And the reason why I'm scared about The Rookie is because I really don't want it to take a Grey's Anatomy route, where they make like 20 plus seasons of the same thing and recycle and all that stuff like that with different characters. And mind you, the people who are watching The Rookie, I'm pretty sure in their eyes they're like, yes, more seasons of The Rookie. But in the new eye, someone who's never watched The Rookie, and they see that the show has 20 seasons, they're gonna be like, I ain't watching all of that. Like the same thing about a cop. I don't think I have the time for that. And it just doesn't affect the audiences, but also affects the actors. Just a while back, Nathan Fillion announced that he would love to do 20 years more of The Rookie. And hey, if he wants to do it, then so will be it. But think about the other actors. Most of them are either in their 30s. And you also have to keep in mind that The Rookie is focusing on a 40-year-old man who joins the LAPD as the oldest rookie that they ever had. And by like the 12th season, Nolan will probably be at his 50s. So basically what my point is that how long can you do it until the actors give up or the writers, press the red button? This show really has lovable characters like Tim, Lucy, Angela, Nyla, and of course my mother effing goat, Smitty. And matter of fact, Smitty is basically like the Captain Levi of the Rookie universe, where like, yes, he's kind of like a main character, but like he has his moments. He has his moments. I also like to mention that some of the episodes have a lot of filler. The one episode like series I'm talking about is the documentary episodes. When I first watched it, I was like, this is pretty interesting. But now that they do it every season, it's like, this is getting boring. Like, I don't like it. So now to the point. What show is better, The Good Doctor or The Rookie? Like I said before, I had this fear of me liking The Rookie better than The Good Doctor, but I am proud to say that I really love The Good Doctor better than The Rookie. I know a lot of you will think I'm being biased because of my autism, but you also really have to think about it. The Good Doctor has one of the best endings that I've seen, if not for Breaking Bad and Attack on Titan. While both shows have like their main characters have like this underdog story, I mainly relate to Sean and Nolan. A good reason why people would choose The Rookie over The Good Doctor is because it's still going and it's a lot more mainstream than The Good Doctor. And The Good Doctor ended a couple years ago, but just because the story ended doesn't mean it can't be told. So my decision has been made since July, since that was the last time I finished the full seasons of The Rookie, even though that season 8 is still going. I still choose The Good Doctor over The Rookie. And if you love The Rookie, give The Good Doctor a chance. It's basically the same thing, but with doctors. It's such an amazing show with an amazing story. Very good actors, very lovable characters, just like The Rookie. But trust me, the ending, it will have you in tears. I guarantee you. And if you watch it, I'm pretty sure you will even choose The Good Doctor over The Rookie, just like myself. And while I do love The Rookie, I am still going to give it an A tier. There are some episodes that are not like the most perfect, but I still give the show a chance. But The Good Doctor over The Rookie, any day of the week, I would die on the hill when I say that. Now taking another little break from shows to a movie, the next segment of this video, I will talk about an indie movie called Mid-90s. Mid-90s is an indie movie directed by Jonah Hill that focuses on a kid named Stevie as he struggles to make friends. That is until he finds himself in a group of skater misfits who take him under their wing and learn valuable lessons as time goes on. When I first watched this movie, I didn't think much of it, but when I rewatched it, I learned something new. Is that the people you meet, even when you're at a young age, you'll meet people that aren't perfect little angels. The kids named Ray, Fuckshit, 4th grade, and Ruben. These are the people that Stevie meets and are clearly not good role models for him. Stevie doesn't even look up to his mom or his older brother as he lives in a home that isn't perfect. But that's the value of this movie. Everyone goes through something. No one's life is perfect. They grow up in an abusive home, are poor or don't have a good education. Mid-90s is an extremely underrated movie with a great message. And it's also the way that this movie was filmed, as it looks like it was filmed in the mid-90s. But this movie came out in 2018. Also, the movie was produced by A24, which in my opinion is pretty cool. But I also want to talk about the ending, as the first time I watched it, I didn't think much of it. I wasn't really a big fan of it. But when I rewatched it, I was like, that's a pretty good ending with a film with a great message. And to end this segment off, Mid-90s is getting an A tier. Yes, it was good, but it wasn't perfect per se. But I really recommend it. Now moving on to the next segment, we're going to talk about a movie with one of my favorite actors, Mark Wahlberg, that also has a great message. And that movie is Instant Family. Instant Family is about a married couple that adopts 3 kids, as they enter the world of parenting and they try their best to teach the new children important lessons. As someone who wants to have a family one day, I really love this movie. I've only watched it once, but I remember loving it. After watching like the first couple minutes, I was getting really bored, but as I let the movie go on, I really loved it. And like I said, I love Mark Wahlberg. I loved him in Patriots Day, Uncharted, and of course in Instant Family. The role that he plays of being the dad is also really inspiring to me. In the film, these 2 moments between him and his adopted daughter is what really makes me want to be a good dad to my future daughter one day. This movie made me realize that parents do whatever it takes to not be a good parent, but also be a good role model to their children. And I really hope this movie will teach you that when you have a family of your own. Oh, and this film also teaches that family don't need to be blood related, they just need to feel love with each other. That's also a valuable lesson that this movie teaches. Whether you're in high school, college, or out of school and you hope to have a family one day, this is the great movie to watch to know what it takes to be a good parent. I love this movie, and given the reasons why I love this movie is going on an S tier. Now moving on to our next movie that plays an important role on why I'm making this video. This movie is our first piece of media that involves romance, and that movie is Someone Great. Someone Great is a comic movie with the elements of romance that focus on a young adult named Jenny. The film follows Jenny after breaking up with her boyfriend and is trying her best to get over the breakup. After a while, she got a new job out of state in New York, and she wants to have one small hangout with her friends Blair and Aaron before she leaves. The reason why this movie plays an important role is because this was recommended by a good friend of mine, and 3 pieces of media are featured in this video, so stay tuned for all of that. But going back to Someone Great, I somewhat liked it. I thought it was a fun watch, but I also think that this movie is just mid. There were some scenes that I did like and didn't like in one scene where they were in the bodega, and there was a song that reminds Jenny of her ex starts playing, and the bodega owner is like, "What the hell are you doing? You scared my cat." I thought that was funny. But there were other scenes that had me like, now, I'm not going to say that this movie was trash or that I didn't like it. I just think that it was okay at best. And this review also plays an important role in this video. But the question is, should I recommend it to you? If you have nothing else better to do in your life, then I don't see why not. But don't go into this movie thinking you're going to watch the best movie of all time. But I will say, I don't know if I'm overanalyzing this movie a little too much, but I feel like the 3 main characters show like the stages of love. For example, Jenny shows the stages of moving on as she just broke up with her boyfriend. Erin shows the stages of confessing her love as she is trying to like find a way to come out to her crush and say, no, I like you or I love you. And as for Blair, she slows the stages of trying to find love. As she comes across with a guy and she shares lovey-dovey moments with him, I guess we could say. Again, I might be overanalyzing this stuff, but I guess you could say that this movie does have some meaning to it. But again, I don't think that this movie is either good or bad. I just think that it's okay at best. And that is why I'm going to give Someone Great a C tier. Now moving on to our next piece of media before the 2020s, we have a show that is more than mid, and that show is The Boys. The Boys is a live-action adaptation based on the comics written by Garth Ennis that follows the story of a young adult named Huey Campbell who lives in a world filled with superheroes. After the death of his girlfriend, who was killed in an accident that was caused by a Superman named A-Train, Huey wants justice for her, but can't do it. That is, until he meets a man named Billy Butcher, who seeks to find justice as well for his deceased wife. So both Billy and Huey team up to take down the Supes, but also learn that there is more to the story about the Supes. This was such a funny and most insane show I have ever watched. Yeah, I forgot to mention that the show is also very gory, so if you're squeamish, the show may not be for you. But I love the characters, especially Frankie. Frankie is the GOAT, but we also can't forget the person who stole the show, which goes to Carl Urban for his role as Billy Butcher. This man could say one of the stupidest things and he will have your stomach hurting. And I also want to talk about Homelander because oh my gosh, this man is a demon. This is someone you don't want to get on their bad side because he will rip you into pieces. And as I said in the small synopsis, the secrets that are revealed in the show are pretty crazy. And the characters are lovable like Billy, Frankie, Huey, A-Train, all these other people. But now we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, Season 5. Season 5 is the final season that will be later released later this year in 2026, and I cannot wait for it. But what an area. I really love The Boys, and in my opinion, I think it's a must-watch. Yes, it's gory, but it's also fun and an interesting story. Ever since Avengers Endgame, the whole genre with superheroes have kind of gone downhill. Yes, I love Spider-Man, No Way Home, Into the Spider-Verse, and I haven't watched the new Superman movie or either other movies like Fantastic Four or all that stuff. I know I'm missing out, but I really enjoy The Boys, and it really revived the whole genre of the superhero genre. But there is another show that I will talk next that really revived it at its best. And knowing that this show is going to come to an end, I'm really sad because this is the one of two shows that I really have left before conclusion. The Boys will have a special place in my heart, and knowing that I had a lot of fun watching it, there's a good reason why it's in my top 10. The show isn't perfect, but is a really fun watch, and that's why I'm going to give The Boys an A tier. Now moving on to our next piece of media, as we are now entering the 2020s, the next show I'm going to discuss is the same concept as The Boys, but with different characters, and this show is none other than Invincible. Follows a story about a young high school student named Mark, who is related to the heroic Omni-Man. On a normal day at work, Mark finds out that he is experiencing unusual symptoms. He then tells his dad about it, and he learns that he's starting to get powers because he is the son of a superhero. Later on, Mark starts to learn how to use his powers and gets his own suit. The only thing that was missing was his superhero name. He later names himself. Remember my last segment when I said about The Boys that there hasn't been as much content about superheroes? Where we're talking chronologically on what shows I watched first, it was first Invincible and then The Boys. And that's where these two superhero shows bring the revival of that superhero genre. And that's where I say I loved Invincible. Invincible was one of those shows where I didn't have a favorite character at first. But now thinking about it, my favorite character is Rexplosive. Yeah, he was a jerk at first, but his development was really nice to see. I also want to talk about the elephant in the room that this show has a lack of animation. At first, I didn't really see it, but when I look at it on TikTok or when I rewatch the show, yeah, the animation is terrible. It really looks like the cap cut where you just drag the character and it just looks terrible. But some episodes have insane animation. The battle between Mark and Conquest, that is absolutely cinema. But that chaos ends in the new season as it took a little while to make, and that's because they actually took their sweet time to fix the animation. And the next season drops later this year in March, and I'm really excited about that. I never read the comics before, so everything that comes up next will come to me as a surprise, but I'm really up for it. Invincible is definitely a must-watch and has such a packed cast. Bro, they have Seth Rogen in the cast. I love Invincible and definitely deserves a spot in the top 10 list. And to finish the segment off, I'm going to give Invincible an S tier. Now taking a little break from shows, as I will talk about a horror movie that I didn't really like at first, but when I rewatched it, my whole opinion changed. And that horror movie is Barbarian. Barbarian is a horror movie directed by Zach Cregger, as it focuses on two residents who both rented out an Airbnb. That is until one day, one of the residents goes downstairs to the basement, and that is when they discover a secret passage in the basement, and they try to uncover what secret this basement is hiding. So I first watched Barbarian when it first got released on Netflix, so that meant I stayed up past midnight. So when I first watched it, I was so confused and didn't really understand much. So I took the time to rewatch a while ago, and I understood what I didn't get, and wow, this was such a great watch. And what makes this movie great is the synopsis. You're believed that it's supposed to be about a secret basement, but it's much more than that. That's how the director intended to be, and that was such a smart way to do it. I also heard the same thing that he did with Weapons, as it's about the kids that walk out in the middle of the night. But I also heard that it's much more than that, because that guy was the same director as Barbarian. So remember to keep that in mind. But this movie was also pretty crazy and sad. Just thought I'd put the information out there because this movie was absolutely insane. I love Barbarian. It's a good movie. And I think it's a good movie to watch for a scary movie night. And to end this segment off, I really think that Barbarian is an A tier. It's not perfect, but it's a really great film. Now moving on to our next segment, we have a show that I wished I never watched, but I did it for the fact that I had my friend watch Attack on Titan, and this show is called The Night Agent. The Night Agent is a thriller series that follows an FBI agent named Peter. Peter was responsible for stopping a terrorist attack on a train and gets rewarded by becoming a night agent. For context, a night agent is a job where you sit in the basement of the White House and answer phone calls from specific people who have a specific code. Peter gets a call from a woman named Rose that survived a fatal break-in shooting. Before the incident, Rose found out that her family members were secret agents and wanted to know if they were hiding something. That's when she teams up with Peter to find out what the secret is, while facing many close calls that could define their demise. Yeah, I'm giving it a buck. This show was absolutely stupid. So remember my Someone Grace segment where I said a friend of mine had recommended me 3 pieces of media that will be featured in this video? This is just 2 of the 3 pieces of media, and the next one will be the final one after this segment. But to go back to where it all started, I just got done watching Breaking Bad and was in the middle of watching Attack on Titan. And my friend told me to watch The Night Agent, and I didn't think much of it. And that's where I made one of the stupidest mistakes that I've ever made, and that was the fact that I traded Attack on Titan for the show. So basically, to put in other words, I basically told my friend, hey, if you watch Attack on Titan, I will watch The Night Agent, So I had no other choice but to watch The Night Agent, because if I don't watch the show, then this person would not watch Attack on Titan. And at that time, I finished Attack on Titan for the first time, because I rewatched the show. And you already know what I said, the best show of all time, better than Breaking Bad, blah, 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 blah. And I watched The Night Agent on that same week that I finished the show. It was on a weekend. And I go on to Netflix to search up the show, and I watched the trailer. And I was like, this show looks pretty cool. I would wonder what my friend watches. And so I did watch the show. And like I already said, I did not like the show. And you have to keep in mind that I traded Attack on Titan for this. I did not know what I was getting myself into. If I truly knew that The Night Agent would be trash, I probably wouldn't even do the trade. I would just say, just watch Attack on Titan. That's the one thing that I would say if I could take it all back. And things that I hated about The Night Agent was a little bit of everything. The acting was absolutely terrible. There was this whole scene where this character is supposed to convince Peter that they didn't do this action, and because the acting was so terrible, it wasn't even convincing. And the death is absolutely terrible as well. When you watch the show for the first time, it immediately kicks you in, it throws you in the fire and expects you to like it, because it's one of those shows where it's supposed to be very fast paced, or you're supposed to catch up with everything. The character was also annoying as well. One character I did not like at all was Rose. Rose is so annoying. And the writing is absolutely terrible as well. The one word I could describe the show is predictable. In the very first episode, the way it ended, I was looking at it, and the episode ended the exact way that I thought. I was like, bro, this show is so predictable, bro. And in all honesty, by the 5th episode, I kind of want to call it quits. But remember the trade. If I didn't watch the show, then my friend couldn't watch Attack on Titan, because that would be unfair. So I had no choice but to watch the show. And would also like to put the fact that this show really tries itself to be so funny. There was this one scene where Peter and Rose go back to the cabin where the whole murder happened, and there's this one scene where Peter was telling to Rose You shouldn't be going with shoes like that. And it pans down to Rosa's shoes, and she's wearing like bunny slippers. I was like, bro, how do you like? How does one even laugh at that? Like that wasn't even remotely funny. This show has 2 seasons, and the best way I could put it is that season 1 was trash, but season 2 was ass. Like the whole storyline with season 2 was just so unoriginal. Like it reminded me of like that Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie where like the lizard goes to the tower and gets like the chemicals to turn everyone into lizards. That was the exact same thing with this chemical gas, and they go to like a tower and they put that chemical bomb, and then once they press like explode and whatever they're doing, that chemical would go out and kill a lot of people because it was very deadly. That was so original. I immediately thought of Andrew Garfield Spider-Man when I thought about that. And something I do want to point out is that as much as I hate this show, you can really feel like I'm very being easy on it. Like honestly, if people were like me and they saw the show, they would be pissed. And I'll be honest, I was pissed. If I was the me back then that I was making this review, I would be, crashing out. But one thing I realized is that at the end of the day, it's a show. I really don't think I should take it that personal. I think the thing that just pissed me off about it was just the fact that I traded Attack on Titan. If you watch both Attack on Titan and The Night Agent, no, it doesn't take a philosopher to say Attack on Titan is better than The Night Agent. And the shows are very two different types of shows. It's not even like a competition at this point. It's not even that close. But one thing I want to talk about is season 3. I've heard a lot about season 3. One thing I heard about is that Rose is not a part of season 3. And I'm honestly happy about that because I really don't like her character. But that season really takes upon about Peter. And in honesty, I really think that this show could have been just about Peter. I don't think Rose should even be a character at this point. I think it could have been like, oh, Peter solves a mystery and he's going through all this and blah 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 and all that. I think what makes the show terrible was the execution. I'm pretty sure, in the back of my head, I really do believe that this show could have been good, but they just did a lot of things that really did not make it work. And I know that there's some people that do like the show because it's not like a Stranger Things show that's very mainstream. It just happens if you watch it, It's not like a popular show, But I don't think they executed it right. But back to season 3, there's no Rose. It's mainly focusing about Peter. And basically what I know about it is that, Peter's trying to save this one dude from people trying to kill him. And that's the whole storyline. And I watched the trailer for season 3. And I was like, this actually looks pretty cool. It looks really good, honestly. But guess what? I said the exact same thing since day 1. Before watching the actual show, I watched the trailer. And I was like, bro, this show looks cool. It looks pretty good. I wonder why my friend would want me to watch this. And I watched it, and you already know what happened. You know what this review is all about. And I love you asking, where are you going with this? I think I'm actually going to give season 3 a shot. I'm really hopeful that this season might be the best season that the last 2 have been. But I think I'm going to put it out there that, if season 3 is good, then I will give it praise. But if season 3 is bad, I really don't want to hear about the show ever again. I know I'm talking very soft, but deep in my mind, I truly hate the show. I don't want anything to do with me to have anything to do with this show. I really don't want to talk about it. I don't want anything like that. But look, if it really meant to get someone to watch Attack on Titan, then I really guess it's worth the sacrifice. And if you're an Attack on Titan fan, I think that you would give me respect for watching a show like The Night Agent for someone to watch Attack on Titan. So, look, I love every single one of y'all. All my AOT supporters, I love every single one of y'all. That's one of the best shows I ever watched. But to end this review, The Night Agent is going on the same tier as All American. Both shows really pissed me off, but in a head-to-head situation, I would choose All American over The Night Agent because it kind of pisses me off more. But that's how I'm gonna end the segment off. And now we're moving on to our next horror movie that was also recommended by the same person that made me watch The Night Agent. We have Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead Rise is a supernatural horror movie about a single mother living with 2 children in an apartment complex. One night, the city experiences an earthquake. Later in that night, the kids go down to the parking lot in the building and discover a secret book on the ground. And they open the book and start to experience horrifying supernatural experiences. Alright, I'm gonna be honest. I was very skeptical about this movie because I'm not really one to watch supernatural horror movies. I'm more into slashers like Scream, Chucky, Halloween, Friday the 13th, and all stuff like that. So that means, and I know they are gonna get mad at me, besides Hereditary, I have never watched Annabelle. I have never watched any of the other Evil Dead Rise movies, and I have never watched any of the Conjuring movies. Because I just don't think that those movies are even good compared to all the slasher movies I've watched. Scream 6 is not only my favorite Scream movie, but one of my favorite horror movies. I will never forget that experience because that movie was absolutely peak. Anyways, I didn't think that I would like this movie. So that's when I looked up 3C Films, and he's someone that I'm very reliable on when it comes to like movie reviews. And he gave this movie the highest praise of like his series of like the 3C reviews. And that's where like I made the decision, maybe I'm gonna give this movie a chance. And so I did, and I absolutely loved it. Being honest, I absolutely loved it. But if anything, I'm kind of glad I didn't watch this in theaters because like that movie was just it actually was scary. Like it really did. It did scare me. Evil Dead Rise really deserves its flowers. And one thing that it really does respect me for is its special effects. Also, this movie was so bloody that it's not even funny. So I would like to say thank you to 3C Films for making me make the decision to watch Evil Dead Rise. I really love your content. I've been watching you since 2019. And I would love to also congratulate to you and your wife for bringing in your kid into this world. But other than that, Evil Dead Rise is a great film and I really do recommend it. Not a perfect movie per se. So that's why I'm going to give Evil Dead Rise an A tier. Now moving on to one of my favorite movies that I've ever watched this past year. So good that I watched this movie 3 times, and that movie is Carry On. Carry On is a thriller action movie about a TSA agent named Ethan, and he gets put in a position where thousands of people could get killed by 2 terrorists. If Ethan doesn't do what they say, it could put not only thousands of people at risk, but also his pregnant girlfriend. What a movie, y'all. The first time I watched this, cinema. The second time I watched this, cinema. The third time I watched this, absolute cinema. A lot of people were hating on this movie because of its unrealistic situation, but that's pretty irrelevant in this case. Like, are we never going to forget the fact that there are actual terrorist attacks and all this other stuff that's happened in the past, couple years or the past decades, like the Boston Marathon terrorist attack? I know it wasn't on a plane per se, but terrorist attacks do happen. I'd love to add in the fact that Ethan is being played by Taron Egerton, the same person that played Elton John in the Rocketman movies, and also Johnny in the Sing movies, Johnny the Gorilla. This man has a talent, and I absolutely respect him for that. And the villain of the story is played by Jason Bateman. The same guy that voices Nick in the Zootopia movies. This man was absolutely scary. Like, when they did, like, this whole face reveal of, like, Ethan going face-to-face with Jason, that movie, like, was absolute shock when I first watched it. What makes this movie really fun is that it was taking place during the Christmas season, meaning that the stakes were high, where it's not just, like, hundreds of people were at risk, but thousands of people were at risk of dying. I love Carry On. It's a great movie. It gets so much unnecessary hate. But trust me, this was a great watch. I had no complaints within the acting, the story, the characters. The death was also really good as I got to learn more about Ethan. And the suspense was there for me. And that is why I'm going to give Carry On an S tier. Now moving on to the final movie of the 2020s before we move on to 2025. We have the third movie of this franchise, and that is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 follows the adventures of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails as they face a massive threat that goes by the name of Shadow the Hedgehog. Because Sonic and his friends can't go up against Shadow, they go up to their one last chance and team up with Sonic's biggest rival, Dr. Robotnik. That was one small summary to put this movie, but I really love this movie. I love the past 2 Sonic movies. The first time I watched the first Sonic movie, it was kind of like before the whole quarantine happened, and I got myself to get the chance to watch it, and I really loved it. The second movie, it was like 2 years ago. I didn't see it in theaters. I watched it when it came onto Paramount Plus, and I love that as well. I really love Tails as a character, and I really like that storyline between Sonic and Tails. So with me loving both of these movies, I had very high expectations, knowing that we finally get to see Shadow in the big screen. I already knew that this movie was gonna be peak. And what made this movie really surprising is that a lot of people were like trying to guess who would play Shadow. And when we got the announcement that Keanu Reeves would play it, a lot of people were like, whoa, Keanu Reeves. Like, it's not like we were skeptical. It was more like we were surprised. So when we saw the first trailer and we saw Keanu's like way of how he would play Shadow, I knew that he would cook. I also want to mention that the special effects was way better than the first two movies. Not like the special effects in the first two movies were bad. It's just the fact that this franchise has made so much money that they're putting all that money into the next movie. And when you put a lot more of a bigger budget, you're going to get much more of a special movie. So with the success of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, you could just imagine on how Sonic the Hedgehog 4, 5, 6, and so on would be such a bigger budget than the third movie. But back to the actual movie, I really love the storyline. Of course, you had Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, and he actually cooked. And also knowing that he played two characters, I thought that was really fun. And if you're very unfamiliar with Shadow's backstory, they do like put it in this movie. And I will say that the movie is a lot more dark than the first two movies. And that's pretty high praise for me because this is a kid's movie at the end of the day. This was such a fun movie with funny moments and dark moments. And let's not forget about the end credit scene. That really had me shook, and I really cannot wait for the upcoming movies. And I truly wish I saw that movie in theaters because, oh my gosh, I just can't wait for the next new movies. I loved Sonic when I was a kid, and me as an adult now, I really enjoy the movies. And I'm going to give Sonic the Hedgehog 3 an S tier. And now that we're done with the 2020s, it is now time to move on to the 2025, where I discuss movies and TV shows that have released in that year of 2025. And the first movie I will talk about is One of Them Days. One of Them Days is a comedy movie that stars Keke Palmer and R&B artist SZA, making it her first acting debut in a movie. The movie follows the two women who struggle to pay their rent because they ran into a financial crisis. So they go on a crazy day with funny moments with the focus to get the money and pay off their rent. So a little lore before we get into the actual review. So I was actually supposed to watch this movie with some friends, but we couldn't get the hangout to happen. So the whole plan was to hang out and watch the movie. It was for a winter break, but unfortunately we couldn't do it. But we did watch a movie that will be later discussed in this video. So we later hung out in the summer that later year of 2025, and me and my homegirl, we were like waiting for our other friend to arrive at the theater, right? And I just mentioned the fact like, we were supposed to watch One of Them Days, and just imagine how that would be. And she basically dropped the ball on me and saying like, oh, I already watched the movie. The reason why I bring this up is because no matter what, we were supposed to watch the movie together, whether it was on theaters, and later that year, it came out on Netflix. So I was like, bro, we gotta watch the movie together. But knowing that she told me that like, yo, I already watched the movie, I was like, man, what am I gonna do now? So I had no other choice but to watch the movie by myself. And I truly wish that I watched this movie with them. Look, I really enjoyed the movie, but I think it's just one of those types of movies that you should watch with one of your friends. But that doesn't mean I didn't like it. I did enjoy it. It had lovable characters. Like, I really love Lucky the homeless guy, but I do want to talk about SZA real quick. Look, I really love SZA musically wise. I love her as an artist. Matter of fact, I got a poster up there of her, and I got 2 vinyl records from her. And by the way, if you want to see a video where I show my vinyl records, I would love to do that. So if you're down for that, then hey, let me know. Back to the fact that I really adore SZA as a person, but I did hear some complaints that people don't like her in this movie. And I honestly see where they're coming from, and this means by no disrespect, because this is SZA's first acting role in a movie before, and it's either that like maybe her acting wasn't the best, or her character didn't really have the best writing. I love that her character has like this little hobby of like painting and like doing that as like a side job, and that she has a good friend that Keke Palmer plays, but in all honesty, she's just okay. And by the way, the whole reason why they were put in this financial situation is because of her character. She's like one of those friends that you have that like are very supportive, but they don't really make the best decisions. That's honestly the best way I could describe her character. But Keke Palmer's character, she's really not someone I could complain about. No, she is loved by a lot of people in this movie. She works a 9 to 5 job like a lot of people do. And is really trying her best to prepare for an interview to get a new job because she is living in a place that doesn't have like the best like living situation. And she has a little crush on this guy that I really think that is a good subplot. But either way, I really did enjoy this movie, and I do wish I did watch it with one of my friends. But there is a sequel in the making, so maybe I will get to watch the movie with them. This movie is fun, but it's not necessarily the best watch, and that is why I'm going to give One of Them Days a B tier. Now moving on to our next movie, which was a fun watch and a very gory movie, and this movie is Hard Eyes. Hard Eyes is a horror comedy movie that follows a young woman named Allie that's trying to move on from her past relationship with her ex. Later on, she meets a guy named Mason, and people believe that they're a couple, and that catches the eyes of the serial deleter called the Hard Eyes Deleter, who deletes loving couples in the most brutal way. And Allie and Mason try their best to survive, even though they are not a couple. I really enjoyed this movie. I remember hearing about this movie a while ago, and it's like one of those movies where you look at it and it's like, maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't be. And I know a lot of people were leaning towards like, oh, it won't be that good, but I heard the reviews and I was honestly surprised myself. I will say this movie does have the same feeling with Someone Great because there is that one scene where Allie and her homegirl go shopping, and it's like this little montage where Allie is putting on outfits and everything like that. That really reminded me about Someone Great. But the difference between the two is that Hard Eyes is supposed to be a horror movie. Of course, like any other horror movies, they have opening deaths, and bro, they were absolutely insane. And it gives you that feeling that the Hard Eyes Deleter is playing no games. So all the funny moments in this movie really shows that this is a great watch, and seeing all the blood splatter all over the place and all the kills, this is a great watch. So yes, I didn't really have the biggest expectations for this movie, but it really surprised me. It's not the best, but ultimately a really good movie to watch. Therefore, I'm going to give Hard Eyes an A tier. Moving on to the show, they got the leading actor an Emmy on his first role on his acting debut, and got to hug Sydney Sweeney at the Emmys, and this show is Adolescence. Adolescence is a show that follows a 13-year-old boy who was accused of deleting a girl from his school. So the whole time, it's about him trying to prove why he didn't do it. Meanwhile, he also has his family in fear of whether they should believe he actually did delete the girl or he didn't. And this leads on a whole emotional rollercoaster ride. I didn't know much about the show. I kind of overheard it from the supervisors in my high school and saying like, oh, have you watched the show and all this stuff like blah, 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 blah. And wow, this show was absolutely amazing. One thing I'm going to give this show praise is not just the acting, but the way that it was filmed. The way that this show was filmed was in one continuous shot with no cutaways. In my junior year of high school, I had a filmmaking class, and I actually learned about this subject of film. And if you were to watch a movie or a show that has a scene where it's like taken in one continuous shot, that is what we call one shot. And I really did find that intriguing because I learned that like a year before I watched this movie, and knowing that I took that knowledge that I learned and I saw it in a show, I was really impressed. But of course, the other praise I'm going to give is the acting. The acting was such an emotional experience, and everyone in the show deserves their flowers. But there's one person I will talk about is Owen Cooper. This little man, at the age of 16, not only got to win an Emmy because this is also his first acting debut, but when he got his Emmy, he got to hug Sydney Sweeney, bruh. I think it was episode 3 where like he had like this crash out scene, and I think that's the one scene that solidified him for being one of the best actors at his age. Like in all honesty, that scene kind of had like the same vibe as like the Andrew Garfield scene in The Social Network, where Andrew Garfield had this crash out scene. But the major difference is that this actor is not even 18 yet. Big praise and really deserved that Emmy, but it's also the fact that he also got to hug Sydney Sweeney like it was a part of the award. But either way, this show was really good. I really love the acting and the storyline and the way that it was shot. It's a really short show, so you can really finish it within like a day or like a little weekend. And that is why I'm going to give Adolescence an S tier. Now moving on to a show that was based on a real case that happened, and that show is Good American Family. Good American Family follows a family of 3 who adopt a girl and they all think of nothing of it, as they just introduce a new member to the family. But later on, the mom starts to get suspicious of the little girl who starts acting strange. Sooner or later, the mom is to believe that her so-called young daughter is a grown adult who has a dwarfism disorder, but her family doesn't believe her. I had a little trouble putting this small synopsis in there because this show is really controversial and it's pretty hard to believe because all the research I did, everything is claimed or reportedly. And if you're asking the question whether Natalia was a real child or an adult, I really don't know because I can't use this show to really answer that question because this show was made for entertainment purposes, so everything in the show was just dramatized. But back to the show, I somewhat enjoyed it, but there was a lot of things that was kind of being like, you had to put a lot of things together. Like, there was a lot of like backstories or flashbacks, and you had to like keep that in mind, and you just had to put it in one single piece. So you really had to follow along, and it's not like I had trouble, but I think a lot of people would. However, that doesn't stop the fact that this show was interesting. I think it was a good way to get that story out of there because I have never heard of this case before. And I'm also really into true crime. So I've heard a lot about cases, especially cases that happened at a time that none of us were born. It also brings the question of whether you should believe that Natalia was a child or was an adult with dwarfism. But this show was made for entertainment purposes, so this was very dramatized. But that doesn't stop the fact that this show wasn't interesting. It's just a matter of what perspective you believe. So if you do watch the show, just be careful what you say because this show was based on a true story that involved, a real lawyer, a family, a lot of people were involved in this case. But either way, I would recommend it. I really did find it interesting. So I'm going to give Good American Family a B tier. Now moving on to a movie that had theater employees in hell because the experiences were just absolutely insane. And this movie is the Minecraft movie. The Minecraft movie follows the adventures of Steve after yearning for the mines as a child. And once he finally made his dreams come true, he found a secret portal that led to the world of blocks full of animals and monsters that spawn at night. After taking a trip to the Nether, he gets ambushed by a bunch of pigmen that want a small cube that holds power if given to the wrong person. That's when he gives the cube to his dog named Dennis and hides it somewhere safe in the real world. As time goes on, Steve's personal stuff gets put into a storage unit that was bought by Garrett and befriends a young boy named Henry. And they find the cube and it leads them to the Minecraft world, along with Henry's sister and the next door neighbor, and try their best to survive. As said before, this movie turned people into wild animals, with scenes like Flint and Steel, and the infamous chicken jockey that got people arrested. But now looking back at it, it's kind of nostalgic in a way. But if I had to take a guess, I think this movie was worth the ruckus. Because when I watched the movie, I was saying the stupid lines along with the movie. So every time Steve would say Flint and Steel, or like when the chicken jockey scene appeared, I did say chicken jockey because, I can be a man-child a lot of times. But I don't think this movie is something to be taken too seriously. Because at the end of the day, it is a kid's movie. And all the stupid lines that they had, it's just for fun. And that's where I say that this movie is pretty mediocre. As a Minecraft player myself, yes, I was pretty excited to see a Minecraft movie, but I was skeptical to the fact that it might be live action. I didn't understand why it couldn't be like animated with actual block characters. But knowing that it had a cast like Jack Black and Jason Momoa, I thought to give it a chance. Matter of fact, I remember when the first trailer came out, and I actually watched it with one of my friends. And when we finished the trailer, he was like, "Bro, that looks like ass." But when the second trailer came out, everyone turned on their backs. Like, everyone absolutely hated the first trailer. But when they saw the second trailer, everyone just like turned their backs on it. Like, they actually gave a damn about the movie. You all know what happened at the theaters. People were absolutely like acting so insane over a Minecraft movie. And now recently they just announced a poster, and the movie will be released, I believe, in 2027. Just know that if you're an employee at a theater, mark your days, bro. I pray for you in that time, bro. I really pray for y'all. I did enjoy this movie, and I did feel in this literal way that my childhood came to life. Because I have been playing Minecraft ever since I was a kid. I grew up watching Dan TDM, Stampy Longnose, popular MMOs, and all those people like that. So seeing a movie like the Minecraft movie, it did feel nice. But at the end of the day, this movie is mediocre and it's something that you should really take seriously. So to end this segment off, I'm going to give the Minecraft movie a B tier. Now moving on to a movie that was hyped up so hard. And if you say that you didn't like this movie, you're going to get called a racist. And this movie is Sinners. Sinners is a recent movie directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan and Haley Stanfield, that is based in the 1930s. The film follows two twins renting out a building for a juke joint and telling their closest friends to bring some friends and have a good time. Meanwhile, a vampire that goes by the name of Remick is being hunted by Native American vampire hunters and hides in a home held by a couple, and Remick infects them. That is when people starts partying and having fun and gets attacked by the vampires, and the people, including the twins, try their best to make it out alive. Yeah, for some reason, if you come to the fact that you don't like this movie, but by the way, that doesn't stop me from saying that this movie was absolutely overhyped. Look, I respect Ryan Coogler for his work like the Black Panther and the Creed movies. I don't think I directed one of them, but you know what I mean. And yes, I respect Michael B. Jordan for his work in the Creed movies and his role in the Black Panther. And of course, I love Haley Steinfeld in the Spider-Verse movies. But even with all those big names, I really don't think Sinners is a great movie. I know that there's a lot of symbolism and there's a lot of stuff that like people missed out, which I understand, but I think a lot of people wouldn't catch it. And I do find it absolutely absurd that like if you don't even like this movie, you're gonna get called for something that like is very controversial and you could get canceled for it. So by that logic, you're saying that if people don't like the Spider-Verse movies, you're gonna call them racist because the main lead is a Afro-Latino character? Like, make it make sense. Look, the movie was filmed beautifully. It has a really good cinematography. It had good acting. It had a good score. But I wasn't really feeling it. I said something on my Instagram story that like the first half of the movie was just filler. And then the second half of the movie actually got good. When I heard that this movie was going to be like the vampire, like I saw the trailer. I thought this movie would be like a Demon Slayer type movie where they hunt demons. In this case, vampires. I really thought it was going to be like that. You had to really think about it. I had expectations. These people who like the movie Sinners or like they actually love it, there are people out there who say like this is the best movie of the past 20 years. I'm like, bro, that's absolutely insane. So I watched it and I was like, bro, this movie was so overhyped. And while I understand that people are open to their own opinions, I will say this. If you really think that Sinners is the best movie in the past 25 years, you need to watch more movies, bro. And that's where I say that Sinners is not even close to movie of the year in my book, because there is a movie on this list that exceeded my expectations. So now I'm going to get a little controversial with this take. Remember my Someone Great segment where I said this? And this review also plays an important role in this video. Alright, here we go. In my opinion, Someone Great, a movie that I found just mid or just okay, is better than Sinners. Dare I say it? Dare I even say it? Even the friend that told me to watch Someone Great, I told them that take, and they couldn't even believe it either. The reason why is because I had such expectations for Sinners because everyone's talking about movie of the year or the best movie in the past 20 years. I had expectations. And when I watched it, I wasn't necessarily disappointed. I was just more like, bro, that was not worth the hype. And knowing that you had big names, into this film, of course I was going to watch it. But like I said, it was so overhyped. I don't really get the hype train about it. I think that this movie was just mid. And also, I didn't know what I was getting myself into with Someone Great. So with all that stuff with Someone Great and Sinners, I will say that Someone Great is better than Sinners in my book. I didn't know what I was getting myself into when watching Someone Great, but I had a better time watching Someone Great over than Sinners. So if I'm hanging out with friends and they ask me the question, hey, do you want to watch Someone Great? Because I know that I would have a better time than watching mid over overrated. Look, say what you want, but Sinners is absolutely overrated and overhyped. So that's why I'm going to give Sinners a C tier. So now moving on to a show that I absolutely adore, that gets absolutely unnecessary hate, and that has a great message, and that show is Forever. Forever is a book adaptation by Junie Blume but with a minor twist. Instead of following a white couple living in the city of New Jersey based in the 70s, but instead focuses on a black couple living in the modern age of 2018 in Los Angeles. The show follows a young high school student named Justin who lives in the hills that goes to a New Year's Eve party that's being hosted by his friend. Later in the party, he sees Keisha, a girl who doesn't live in the most financial part of LA who runs for a track team in private school. Justin and Keisha knew each other since they were kids, but this was their first time meeting each other for the first time in forever. No pun intended. After a while, they hang out and go on a date. And on that date, that's when Justin finds out that Keisha is someone who's not she's supposed to be. Because Keisha has a leaked sex tape that she's been running away from since. And it is because of this tape that could put the relationship at risk. I don't watch romance. It's not because I'm a guy who doesn't watch romance because it's girly or anything. I just don't watch it because it doesn't really interest me. The only reason why I even watch Forever is because a lot of people were talking about it on TikTok saying how crazy it was. And so I did, and they were not lying. Literally in the first minute of the show, you would know that Justin is a gooner. And in that same episode, Justin and Keisha go on a date. And they go to the movie theater to watch the movie. And Keisha was trying to get Justin that chuba chuba. Even I made a TikTok about it because it was absolutely insane. Even after all that crazy stuff, I really enjoyed the show, and it's honestly one of my favorite shows of this past year. And again, I don't watch romance. I've only seen like clips of the Titanic, but that's really all that. And that said before, this show does have a meaning, but I don't think a lot of people caught up to it. And it's just the fact that a lot of girls go through the same thing that Keisha's going through. If you're in middle school right now, just know that the people you will meet in high school are not perfect little angels. You will meet people that like smoke, drink, and party. But one group of people that you will meet in high school is the people who have already lost their virginity. Look, I really don't care if you do it or you don't. And if you do, make sure you do protection, or the girl has birth control, or you have a plan B. But for your own safety reasons, do not film it. That is supposed to be a time that you're supposed to have fun with each other, and it's not meant to be shared with anyone. And especially if you're in high school. Like, why do you think schools make that annual assembly about what not to post online, and that the internet is written in pen and not pencil? Because the things that you post online stay on the internet. What I also loved about Forever is that they blackwashed this, and that they made it in a different era and a different location. And that gives me my ultimate respect because it shows representation to the black community. But the more I think about it, it's more than that. As there has been a lot of swapping of races and other pieces of media, like The Little Mermaid, Spider-Man, and of course Snow White, this really shows that anyone can be played by anyone. And that's really inspirational to me. So that's where I say that if you don't like Forever, I really recommend rewatching it and open your eyes and try to look for details that you didn't catch in the first watch. Like, one thing I noticed is that Justin does have ADHD, and he has a lot of people on his back, just like the same way that I have with people with my autism. And also talks about life dreams. Justin has a dream about playing in the NBA because he does play for his high school basketball team, but he later changes that dream and wants to pursue making beats. This is really relatable to a lot of people because kids do have dreams, and matter of fact, they chase their dreams and ditch school. And that is something that Justin questions about. This show shows the facts on how high school really is. And that's where I say this. Remember my All-American segment where I said this? And I will say this, the first reason will come back later in this video, so stay tuned for that. So what both shows have in common is that they both focus on black people as the main characters. But one thing that All-American gets wrong is that they focus too much on gang violence and not on the actual story, and that they keep making unnecessary new seasons. But Forever, on the other hand, actually focuses on the actual story and has a great message at the end of the day. And I wasn't the only one who noticed that. I saw a TikTok on a review about a black creator, and she was basically making her review on Forever, and she said how it's finally about a show about black people, and she said, and I quote, "no pew-pews."
I feel like a lot of y'all be missing the message behind Forever. Y'all be like, Keisha easy, Keisha going, Keisha gave Justin head on the first night. Like, that's because Christian made Keisha feel like she has to give her body to boys to be loved. This show is really a reflection on this generation. Niggas be wanting one thing and one thing only. And even though that's not what Justin wanted, that's how Christian made her feel. Now she can't unfeel that way. She don't have no self-respect. She don't have no morals. And neither do these girls in this generation nowadays. And it's sad, but it's true. And when Christian leaked her tape, that's reality nowadays. You can't do nothing with a boy without him recording you, trying to embarrass you, going kissing and telling his friends, telling everybody y'all did something. That's nowadays. And when Keisha and Justin was in the movies and she was trying to give him head, he was like confused. He like, what you mean it's the first night? And she's like, this is how I show you how much I like you. She was like manipulated into thinking that way. Like, she's brainwashed. Because she did things with Christian, she feel like, okay, I have to do that with every boy I meet, or he's not going to like me. Like, that's reality nowadays. Once you do something with someone, you want to keep doing it with other people. You know? Like, that's really how it is.
And that's where I say this, and I could die on a hill while saying this. I truly believe that Forever is better than All-American. Because Forever shows a story that's more accurate than what All-American showed. No gang violence, no gun violence, no police brutality, and all stuff. I know a lot of people don't like the show, especially for the people around me, because they either don't watch the show or they completely bash on it. But they need to realize that Forever shares a message that needs to be told. Be careful what you post online and what you say on the internet, because it will follow you and come back to bite you. So to the people that don't like Forever, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to give Forever an A tier. It would have been an S tier, but just like Death Note, the second half wasn't really that good. But that doesn't stop the fact that it was a great show and that had a really good message and a good ending. And just to put out there, Forever was supposed to be in the top 10 list, but there was a show that later came out this year and completely wiped out Forever from the list. Now moving on to the next segment, it's time to talk about a movie that holds a special memory in my heart, and that movie is Final Destination Bloodline. Final Destination Bloodline is the 6th installment of the Final Destination franchise that focuses on a family whose grandma cheated death in a skyscraper that almost collapsed. Since then, death has attacked multiple families because they were not meant to be alive. That's when the main characters find out that death is coming for them, and each of them are starting to get taken down one by one. The reason why this holds a special place in my heart is because this was the first time I ever hung out with friends outside of school, and it was with my homegirl and my other friend. This was the first time hanging out with each other since it was their graduation, and I was just a junior at the time. And as I said before, we were supposed to watch one of them days during the winter break, but we really couldn't figure out a plan to get the dates to match up. And then that's when we hung out in the later summer to watch this movie. But first, I'm going to talk about the movie and then get into a little story time. I really enjoyed this movie. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed the Final Destination franchise, and I'll put this movie in the top 3. I followed this movie's production since 2020, and hearing all the updates and all the other stuff that I've been hearing about, and knowing that it was now about a family instead of like a group that either like survived a roller coaster or a plane crash or whatever, but instead it is something that your grandma survived and you were just put in the crossfires. And the deaths, they were insane. So insane that my homegirl was like looking at the scenes and she was like I felt bad, but at the same time it was kind of funny. And there were funny moments in this movie with characters like Eric, and there was like a scene where like he found out his dad wasn't his real dad, and we were just in there in the theater and I was like, is he adopted? And everyone was laughing. And by everyone, I mean by the 6 or 7 people that were in that room, because we were at a Cinemark and it was at the Crenshaw Mall, so we don't really get a lot of foot traffic. So yeah, so it wasn't that much people in there. And what also makes this experience fun is that it was the first time hanging out with like my friends and not with going to the movies with like my family or with my parents. It was actually just me and people that I really adore. And now going to the story time, since this does come in later in the video, is that at the time I was 17 and my friends are legal adults, meaning that they have their IDs. And of course, Final Destination is a rated R movie. So Cinemark does have like this curfew where like after 5, if you're under 18, you have to come with a legal adult. Our other friend came in very late, so it was me and my homegirl that we were waiting like in the mall or like outside of the theater. And when we did arrive to the theater, since we came together, actually came to my house first, we checked in with one like the employees, and we actually talked to the manager, and she said that we were good. And then when our friend finally arrived and we were ready to buy the tickets, one of the employees was like literally telling us no, because yes, my friends are 18, but they're not like legal adults. They're not like my mom or anything like that. But we couldn't really do it. But me and my homegirl found the manager, and she talked to the employee and all that stuff, and then we got to see it, and we really had a fun time. And then right after that, we walked all the way from the mall to my house. And then, as I explained in the All-American segment, no gang violence here in Crenshaw or in Exposition Park, because that really doesn't exist here. But yeah, me being 17 at the time and me being 18 now does play a role later into this video, as I have watched the movie that really exceeded my expectations. But I really enjoyed Final Destination Bloodlines. It's not necessarily the most perfect movie out there. I will say, rewatching like some of the scenes, I will say the deaths, they're not really like that practical. Like it felt like 3D. I don't know how to explain it, but like I think it was just like in the moment biasy where I say like I love the movie. I'm not saying I don't like the movie now. I'm just saying that like it feels different when you watched it in the theater and when you watch it like on YouTube or at home. Either way, it is a great watch, and that is why I'm going to give Final Destination Bloodline an A tier. Now moving on to another horror movie that did not meet expectations, but it is a part of a franchise that I really love, and that movie is Fear Street Prom Queen. Fear Street Prom Queen is the 4th installment of the Fear Street trilogy that focuses on a time before the trilogy. It focuses on a group of students that are getting ready to celebrate their annual prom night. However, darkness comes as when events about to be taken, the Prom Queen nominees start to get taken down one by one. Yeah, this movie is not good. I'll be honest, when I first watched it, I didn't think much of it, but now that I think about it, yeah, it really wasn't that good. I was really excited to see a new movie from the Fear Street franchise because I really enjoyed the trilogy. I think the trilogy is like a banger. Like there's no, how do I say this, like they're nowhere near than bad. Like they are really amazing. And that's when the trilogy ended back in the summer of 2021. And a lot of us fans were eager to see like at least a new installment of the franchise. And that's when Netflix announced, the Fear Street Prom Queen movie. And I was like, bro, this is really amazing because like if you really think about it, like at the time it was my senior year and prom was right around the corner. And so like this was like a really like It felt like a match made in heaven. So when time passed on and the movie finally released on Netflix, yeah, a lot of us were disappointed. It was not that good. I really had expectations for it being good because knowing like the plot line, about being, about prom, and just the story itself sounds interesting. Like it really sounds good on paper, but when you really watch it, it's just not that good. And I stayed up until past midnight to watch the movie. So like I watched the movie the moment it released on Netflix, and yeah. You know that meme of like the horse where like it's on fire and then at the end like at the face is like a paper? That's the one way to describe this movie compared to the trilogy. And the main complaint I had about this movie is that it didn't feel like a Fear Street movie. It just felt like a Tubi movie, and then they just plastered the Fear Street logo on it and basically just said like, "Oh, you want a new Fear Street movie? Here's a Fear Street movie." And this was a brand new story. And when I say that, like, I don't really know if this movie really has anything to do with the franchise. And in the Fear Street movies, they really shared a lot of stories, and I really wish they could make their own movies so they can like tell that story and not be like a flashback. Like Grifter, the Humpty Dumpty Killer, the Milkman guy, Billy Barker, but they made a whole complete new movie and it really did disappoint. This movie felt like there was no correlation to the previous trilogy. I would have loved to see, like the stories of the other like things that the Fear Street trilogy has shared, but unfortunately they didn't. And one thing that Fear Street is known is for its practical effects, especially with its kills. Like the one thing that could come to mind is the bread cutter scene. That scene really still traumatized me till this day. This movie felt so watered down, and the kills were just so predictable. And like I said before, I didn't think of it like at first. But now that I think about it, yeah, it's really not that good at all. Because if you're a horror movie fan, you would love to have like fun with these type of movies that have like practical kills or like such gory kills. Like Final Destination or Saw, or like I said about Hard Eyes. That was a movie that I really had fun with that had such practical kills. But Fear Street Prom Queen did not have any of that. And that is why I'm going to give Fear Street Prom Queen a D tier. Now moving on to another movie that was also released by Netflix, but was also directed by the famous Tyler Perry, and this movie is Straw. Straw focuses on a single mom who is struggling with financial problems, who loses her daughter from CPS because of her lack of financial support. Sooner or later, she gets fired from a job and gets put in a situation where she stole a gun and goes to a bank. Because of this, the law gets involved, and this movie goes through an emotional roller coaster ride. Yeah, that's one way to put this movie without like missing out on any context. But I will say that when I first watched this movie, I thought it was okay. But when I rewatched it, my opinion changed drastically. I really do believe that this movie has good acting and a really good story. And knowing that it follows a character about someone who's struggling financially, is people something that a lot of people go through. It was actually my mom who told me about this movie because she just got back from a family function, and apparently one of my tias that told her about it. And when she came back, she's like told me like, "Hey, have you heard about this movie?" And fun fact, that same day was the same day that I first watched Someone Great. So when I watched from Someone Great to to Straw, and like I said about Someone Great, it is okay at best. And like I said before, when I first watched Straw, I thought it was okay. But when I rewatched it, my opinion did change. I really don't know how else I could review this movie because there is a little plot twist, not even just a little, like a big plot twist that like I can't even describe because no spoilers. But I'm gonna say this movie was extremely sad. And I really do believe it deserves a worth to watch. I do want to mention that the role that Teyana Taylor played as like Detective Raymond, because her character was like the one character that had like a little bond with Janai because of their past trauma. I know I'm not necessarily giving the best review for this movie, but that's because I can't really talk about it without like spoiling things, because you really need to go in this movie with like a fresh mind. I don't know how to say it, but like you need to go in there and like just watch it. Like, just watch it. So, once again, another short review, especially with the last one. Originally, I was going to give Straw a C tier. But when I rewatched it, my opinion changed, and that is why I'm going to give Straw an S tier. It honestly would have took the movie of the year title in my book, but in 3 segments later, I will talk on a movie that deserved that title. Now moving on to the next segment, I'm going to talk about the last and final season of a show that broke Netflix records, and that show is Squid Games Season 3. Squid Games is a Korean-based TV series that follows a man named Gi-hun who is struggling financially and plays a game of dachi with a guy in a suit. After winning a game with him, he gets invited to play a game that could win him millions. Once he writes the games, he later finds along with his competitors that the games they will play are literally a life or death situation, so they try their best to survive and see who could be the last one standing. I know I explained the synopsis for like the first season, but that's because season 3 has like a lot of context that I was missing from season 2. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to spoil season 2 right now. So if you haven't watched Squid Games yet, I would recommend, to click off or just to watch the season. But if you had, you could just stay here and all that stuff. But here we go. So basically, Gi-hun won the games in season 1, and even though he was meant to live to pass that life, he couldn't get over it and realized that no one should go through what he did. So he comes up with a plan to end the games once and for all, and by doing that, he has to go back. So that means he has to play the games again and survives by the end of the finale of season 2, but lost his friend due to the plan that got backfired. So basically, season 3 just picks up after season 2, but at the end of the day, I really enjoyed it. Just like Attack on Titan, there was no plot armor, meaning that anyone could die at any moment. The 3rd season introduced new games like hide and seek or tag, like a really violent version of hide and go seek tag. The jump rope scene, and I believe like a much like more like brutal of like the Squid Game. And oh yes, I did have my own share of crying during the season, but it wasn't that bad compared to Attack on Titan. It was more like I felt like a teardrop like going down my cheek. But yeah, we all gotta cry at some point, right? And the ending was just so sad. I remember the day before, the creator of the series, he announced that Squid Game will not have a happy ending. So like, I was really thinking like, how, like, what do you mean no happy ending? Like, why would you say that before the season premieres? He wasn't lying. It was really sad. I really don't know what's up with like these like foreign shows, like. For example, like Attack on Titan is a Japanese anime, and Squid Games is a K-drama, like a Korean drama show. I don't know what's up with these shows, but they always like bring in like the biggest emotions that I don't feel about other shows. Like I said in my Attack on Titan segment, the ending of Outer Banks, it really didn't make me cry. It just made me stare at my TV. But when it came to like Attack on Titan, I did, cry. And also was the same thing with Squid Games. I did, have my share of feels of emotions. But as a season, yes, it's really good. And I heard about like stuff about like, I think it was Moist Critical that talked about like, it wasn't like the best, but in my opinion, like it is a good season. But I do see where he's coming from. This is kind of weird because it's me reviewing a season. It's not like the entire show. If this was the entire show, it's automatically going to the S tier. But because this is just a season, and there's a lot of context that like I did not like. I know I gave out some in the beginning, but like if you haven't watched the series before, then this will feel different, and that is why I'm gonna give season 3 an A tier. And just like Squid Game season 3, I'm gonna talk about another new season that came out this year from a show that I really did not like expect to be good, but I really enjoyed it. And that season is Quarterback Season 2. Quarterback is a documentary-style show that focuses on NFL quarterbacks and their journey throughout the season. The show shares their personal lives like hanging out with friends and family, but also shows the work that they put into the game that they love. As a huge NFL fan, I didn't think that I would like this show, but when I actually watched it, I really loved it. The first season focuses on the Atlanta Falcons' Marcus Mariota, Minnesota Vikings' Kirk Cousins, and Kansas City Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes. But now in the second season, they brought back Kirk Cousins, but this time he's in the form of playing for the Atlanta Falcons. But they brought in 2 new faces for the season, and that was the Detroit Lions' Jared Goff and Cincinnati's Joe Burrow. I was supposed to make a little intro for Joe Burrow, but now that I think about it, it's kind of corny. So, yeah, I love you, Joe Burrow. So, yeah, put that out there. I really love the season, and I was so happy with the selections that they made this year. Yes, I know it was weird to bring back Kirk Cousins, who was just in the previous season, but if you really think about it, in Kirk Cousins' perspective in season 1, A lot of people enjoyed it. Like, people like gained so much respect about Kirk Cousins. I honestly did not know much about Kirk until I watched, the first season, and I actually love him as a player. For him playing for the Atlanta Falcons, I can't really agree with anything like that. But I love Kirk Cousins at the end of the day. But Jared and Joe's stories are completely different. So Netflix had this other show called Receiver. It's kind of like a spinoff. It's the same thing, but there's just for different positions. In that show, they featured Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff's teammate. So knowing that like people loved Amon-Ra, I understand why they were bringing Jared Goff. And also the thing about Jared Goff, if you really know about his story, he played for the Rams and then he got traded to Detroit. At the time, it wasn't the best team to play for. And seeing the rebuild that the Detroit Lions had, a lot of people gained so much respect for Jared Goff. So it was pretty understandable why they brought in Jared for this season. And to talk about Joe Burrow is just a chill guy. And if anything, Joe Burrow, he's just one of those quarterbacks that that gets the girls crazy for. So I kind of understand why they kind of brought him in. And if anything, I saw the TikToks. Yes, I seen the TikToks. But in a NFL fan perspective, I love Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, I've been following along with him since his rookie season. I understand that he had a history with LSU, being a Heisman winner and winning the Natty. But at the end of the day, I've been a Joe Burrow fan since day one. And I really love the fact that they brought him in. And so, yes, 2 new people that I'm really happy they brought in. And that is where I'm going to bring an All-American into the segment, because this is a really good comparison. This is the football I know. Real people with real issues and no unrealistic drama. Kirk Cousins is a family man. Jared Goff is a supportive husband who is now a dad. And Joe is just a chill guy who has a passion for the game that he plays. There is no selfishness, because football at the end of the day is a team sport. If you win, it's on everyone. If you lose, it's on everyone. And there is no argument that playing as a quarterback is one of the toughest positions in sports. Because when you have 200-pound men coming to attack you, it can lead to extremely serious injuries. I really love the show, and knowing that this is an annual thing, because I'm pretty sure it was 2023 when they made the first season of quarterback. And then in 2024, they made receiver. And then just this past year, 2025, they made the second season for quarterback. And just imagine on who they bring in next. Like, what if they bring in Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, or my glorious king, Baker Mayfield, or another series like receiver into season 2 where they bring in Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, or whatever. Like, just the sky is the limit when it comes to shows like these. And remember that these people that we root for when they play good, or we boo at them when they play bad, at the end of the day, they are human. I have respect for every player, even if they're on a team that I don't like. I really recommend the show. And even if you're someone who's not into sports, and this also goes for the people who watch All-American, watch the show. I honestly guarantee you that you will like the show better than All-American, because knowing that what I saw in All-American, I just couldn't really take it. I was really disappointed as a NFL fan. And seeing, a show like quarterback, it gave me respect. It really gives me high respect, because it shows it shows more things that happen on the field, but shows things that happen off the field. And it really shows the valuable lesson that people work hard to be in the position that they are in right now, and that could be you one day. You just need to put in the work and the effort for it, even if it means that it'll cost your life. And because now, unlike Squid Games, where I couldn't put it in the S tier because there was a lot of things that was so out of context, but quarterback is a different situation, and that is why I'm going to give quarterback an S tier. Final thoughts: if you're a guy out there and you have a girlfriend and you're going to watch a show, I don't know how you convince your girl to watch this. And if she sees Joe Burrow, she's not going to shut up, bro. You're going to live every day of your life, and she's going to talk about Joe Burrow nonstop. Just going to put it out there. I'm warning you, boys. I'm warning you. She wants Joe Burrow. Now moving on to the final movie of this episode, and if you made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe, and I really enjoyed the support, and if you made it this far, I really enjoy it. This is a movie to a series that holds a special place in my heart, and this movie is Demon Slayer Infinity Castle Part 1. Demon Slayer is an anime adaptation of the manga that follows a young boy named Tanjiro Kamado who lives in a world filled with man-eating demons who can be defeated by decapitation by a special sword or by sunlight. Tanjiro suffers the loss of his family who were brutally murdered by a demon, and the only person left alive was his young sister named Nezuko. When trying to get her to a hospital, Nezuko attacks Tanjiro, and that's when he finds out that she was turned into a demon. Soon after, a Hashira named Gyu tries to kill Nezuko, but Tanjiro defends her and believes that he could find a cure for her. Gyu gives advice that it will be difficult, but helps him out by sending him to a former Hashira named Urokodaki, who trains him to become a demon slayer as Tanjiro and Nezuko go on an adventure in hopes to find a cure to bring his sister back. So just like the Squid Game review, I kind of gave the synopsis for the show so that way I couldn't confuse y'all with missing information. So what I'm going to do differently is that I'm just going to talk about the movie and not spoil the series. So in order to watch this movie, you need to watch the show to know exactly what I'm talking about. So the movie takes place right after the previous season. So the way that the last season of Demon Slayer that's on Netflix right now, the movie picks up right after that. So if you go to this movie knowing nothing, you'll just be lost. There's a lot of lore, there's a lot of backstory to it. The show really shares the backstory of like Tanjiro and his friends like Inosuke and Zenitsu, and then the Hashiras like Mitsuru, Shinobu, and Tokido. So in short summary, the movie basically focuses on like the final battle between the Demon Slayers and the King of the Demons, Muzan Kibutsuji. Remember my final destination segment where I said that like, oh, it was the first time like going to the movies with friends and not with my family. So I decided to one-up that experience, and that is where I actually watched this movie by myself. So that meant that I walked in the theater, walked up to the counter and said, well, can I have a ticket for Demon Slayer? And then I watched it, and it was 3 hours of straight peakness. I wanted to watch it on opening day, but I couldn't do it because there were some personal issues that was going wrong with my family, so I really couldn't. So I had to wait a week for it, and it was really worth it. I really love this movie. It was everything that I wanted in a Demon Slayer movie. And that is something that I said along the lines to my friend. It was like, oh, it was everything I wanted in a Demon Slayer movie. And I literally said, I'm not even joking, I said that it was just as perfect as the 94 plus episodes as Attack on Titan. That's how good this movie was. And just to put it out there, the reason why I watched this movie by myself, because not a lot of my friends watch anime. And even if I do have friends that do watch anime, like do watch, this series, it's just been like so hard to hang out with them. So I had no other choice but to watch this movie by myself. But either way, I really enjoyed it. I've been watching Demon Slayer since I was 12. It was actually during lockdown. I actually watched it in like the winter break of that era. I was in 8th grade, so I was spending my time in quarantine in this room playing Call of Duty or Fortnite and other stuff. And I go on Netflix one day and I just see Demon Slayer, and I watched it and I fell in love with this series. And yes, 3 hours of peakness. I honestly could have used 2 hours of this stuff, but no. That's the one negative I have about this movie. It wasn't longer. I really wish I could just stay there during the entire day, but nah, man, they couldn't do it. They couldn't. Oh my gosh. The first time I watched it was actually in dub, and that goes for the same thing with Squid Game. I watched the series in dub, but actually, when I caught up with the movie, I actually rewatched Demon Slayer in its entirety, and yes, it was in sub and I will say this right now, it is a lot more better in sub than dub. A lot of fans are speculating that the other parts of the movies will be releasing like 2 years apart. So that means in 2025 we have part 1, and in 2027 we will have part 2, and then in 2029 we will have the finale that will end off the series in 2029 with part 3. So that means when part 2 comes out, I will be in my 20s, and when part 3 comes out, I will be 22. I have watched this series since I was 12, and what an absolute journey. And look, Attack on Titan will live for the rest of my life in my head, but Demon Slayer will live forever in my heart. Like, I really love this series. So remember what I said about like, oh, I had a movie in here that would be like the title for movie of the year in 2025? This is this movie. This movie really exceeded my expectations. And look, anime will be looked at from a casual perspective as like this corny show and like just not worth the watch. But trust me when I say this, it is. There will be times where anime will be put over shows. And in this scenario, I truly believe that Demon Slayer Infinity Castle Part 1 is 10 times better than Sinners. Sinners cannot reach the same peakness that Demon Slayer had. And I am so excited to watch the new parts of the series, and I'm just going to be so devastated to say goodbye to the series because this really holds a special place in my heart. And just for like a little mini story time. So remember like back then when like, oh, I was 17 and like we couldn't watch Final Destination because I didn't have a legal adult because Even though my friends were 18, they couldn't they're not like my mom or anything. But guess what? When this movie came out, I just turned 18, and I was waiting for my ID to come in, and it came in from the perfect time. And when I got into that movie theater, I was ready. I pulled out cash and I pulled out my ID, and then when I walked at the counter and asked for a ticket for Demon Slayer, they didn't ask for my ID. They didn't ask. And I actually mentioned it to my friend, and I was like, oh, maybe it's because it was an anime and they didn't really expect that. And because, Final Destination, is rated R, and Final Destination, what that is. And Demon Slayer, on the other hand, it's an anime. So, I don't think they really care much. But trust me, Demon Slayer is really dark. I don't think any kid below the age of 12 should watch Demon Slayer. 12-year-old me, watching the first episode of Demon Slayer, it really had me when specific scenes happen. But either way, Demon Slayer is peak. If you don't like anime, go ahead and give this show a shot. In this generation, Demon Slayer is one of the best animes in the game right now. I could never understand how people could give Squid Games or Alice in Borderland a shot, because they are shows that are not in the English language, but they can't give anime a shot because, it's anime. This series not only made me laugh, but also made me cry at certain points. And here I say that Demon Slayer Infinity Castle Part 1 is not only getting the S tier, but is also getting the title for Movie of the Year. I will die on a hill for that. Now we're on to a show that brought back a villain for the first time since 2019, and this show is Welcome to Derry. Welcome to Derry focuses on a time before the first chapter of the movie that was released in 2017 of the year of 1962. The story follows a group of young kids who are in the search of their friend who went missing. As they try their best to find their friend, they start experiencing real situations that involve their biggest fears. That's when they found out that the fears are being caused by a clown who goes by the name of Pennywise, who has the ability to become your biggest fears and slowly eats you. It is up to the kids to defeat Pennywise, but at the cost of their lives. I love the show. I was waiting for every Sunday for every episode to release, because it was one of the shows where a weekly episode comes out. And originally, I was supposed to watch the show until all of the episodes release, but I made a decision just to watch it from day one, and what an absolute journey it was. If it weren't for the show, Forever would have been on the top 10 list. This show completely blew my mind and just knocked out Forever off that list. Even though I am sad about it, at least it lost to a worthy opponent. It just feels so nice to see Pennywise back again, because this was the first time to see his appearance since 2019. And when I say this, I mean literally in a serious way. Pennywise was so brutal in this show. He was more brutal than he was in the movies. The most he did was just bite off Georgie's hand, or he bit off Adrian's, chest in the second movie, or eat that kid in the mirror maze in the second movie as well. But this era of Pennywise was not holding back. By the end of the first episode, you will be hooked and there is no turning back. I also can't forget about the lovable characters that the show has. And remember, this is a prequel from the 2017 movie, so that means that no one is safe in this show, especially the kids. But unless you know the story very well, you might know who lives and who dies. But if you don't know the story like myself, then yes, it will come as a surprise to you. There was a lot of complaints about the CGI, but in my personal experience, it didn't really matter to me. But I do know what they're talking about. And because the show was so successful, they're going to make 2 seasons of the show, but with a twist. Each season will focus on a brand new story with brand new characters, but will be 27 years earlier. So because season 1 took place in 1962, season 2 will take place in 1935, and season 3 will take back all the way in 1908. I'm really excited on what brand new stories that they will tell. At the end of the day, I really love the show, and that is why I'm giving Welcome to Derry an S tier. Now moving on to the final segment of this video, and then later I will talk about what my top 10 shows are of this year. We have the final season that concludes a show that has been airing since 2016, and that show is Stranger Things Season 5. Stranger Things is a sci-fi show that focuses on a young group of kids named Mike, Will, Lucas, and Dustin, based in the 80s, and after the events of Will going missing, it's up for the other kids to search and find their missing friend. On a rainy night trying to find their friend, they find a girl with a shaved head named 11. Finds out that she has telekinetic powers. After keeping her hidden in Mike's basement, she tells them that they're in danger and that there's a whole new world right below them full of monsters. What an absolute journey, y'all. And yes, I know I did the same thing again where I focused on the actual synopsis of the first season. So let's just get to the point and talk about season 5. So season 5 takes a full time jump, and they're facing a massive threat by the name of Vecna. And just like 11, he also has telekinetic powers. So it's basically up to the kids to take down Vecna before he takes over the world. Best way to summarize the story, and I just can't believe it's over now. 2016, I was 9 years old when I first watched this show. And now it ended at the age of 18, so 9 years later, man. Wow. That is absurd. Really absurd. This is one of the shows I have left before conclusion, and the other shows I have left, is of course The Boys. But if we're talking about Netflix, I also have Outer Banks. Outer Banks, I really love the show. I've been watching Outer Banks since I think it was between 8th and my freshman year of high school. I know it's weird to bring in the Outer Banks in the situation, but just to know that these shows are ending off soon, and I can't, bro, I can't. There are arguments that this season or the finale wasn't good. I'll be honest, I actually thought it was good. I do think that the ending is good, and I know what I'm saying, bro. What do you think about the Attack on Titan references? Honestly, I did not catch them at first, but when I saw TikToks about it, I was like, bro, did they copy Attack? No, I'm playing. I don't think they copy Attack on Titan, but I know a lot of you AOT fans, y'all caught up with it. But honestly, I didn't mind. It just yeah, it felt weird, but yes, of course, Attack on Titan did better, but Stranger Things was good. Stranger Things was really good with it. I thought it was a beautiful ending, and I know that this show that holds a special place in people's hearts, and especially mine, and will be generational as time goes on. Now, I'm not saying Stranger Things is the best show of all time, but this is the ultimate great watch. And if you want to complain about the ending, watch Attack on Titan, and tell me how you feel about the ending, because it has been almost nearly a year, and I still haven't moved on from Attack on Titan. Because in terms of Netflix original shows, I just have Outer Banks left. I lost Stranger Things. I lost 13 Reasons Why. I lost Cobra Kai. Oh yeah, what I want to mention. People do compare oh, Cobra Kai had a better finale than Stranger Things. I do see it. I really do see it. But I don't think Stranger Things is that I would say that legendary. That's the best way to put it. Because Stranger Things has been here for a long time, and Cobra Kai was just just a show that came out of nowhere and then just took over. But yeah, that's a weird comparison I see, and I know it's weird to bring that up, but yeah. But other than that, I just came to the conclusion to just cherish those memories, because dude, what an absolute era. I will personally say this, that season 3 is one of my favorite seasons, and season 4 is the best season so far, since it leads up to the final season. There are enjoyable characters like Dustin. Dustin has been my day one since I was 9 years old. And then, of course, you got the babysitter Steve. Really nostalgic, and once again, greatness has come to an end. Of course, not the best season or the best ending, but it's very satisfying. I'm not saying that was just as satisfying as Breaking Bad, but I was really happy with it. And of course, I can't forget the feeling that it was sad. So to end off the segment before I talk about my top 10 shows of this year, I'm going to give Stranger Things Season 5 an A tier. So to finally end off this video, I'm going to talk about my top 10 shows of this year, and I'm not going to go too much in depth for it, so I think I'm just going to rapid fire my top 10, but here we go. At number 10, I have The Rookie. At number 9, I have The Boys. At number 8, I have Death Note. At number 7, I have Welcome to Derry. At number 6, I have BoJack Horseman. At number 5, I have The Good Doctor. At number 4, Invincible. At number 3, Dexter. And at number 2, Breaking Bad. And of course, at number 1 is Attack on Titan. And if you made it this far, just know that I really thank you. And the fact that you made it this far, I honestly didn't think that you would. Because I know this video was very long, and this video really took much to make. So I had to go through a lot of delays and all this stuff. But I'm really happy to make this video, and knowing that this will be an annual thing. So be ready for that. But other than that, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my decisions on where I put these shows on the tier list. And if you hated or love my opinions about them. I know I gave off a lot of opinions that weren't really necessarily relevant to the shows themselves, but that's just how I view them, and I will be better on how to review shows later in the year 2026. And just know that the shows that I've been watching in this past year, and it's only just January, none of these shows have a lower rating than a 9. So the year of me ranking every show and movie that I've watched in the past year of 2026 will probably be better than this video. So I'm really excited to make that video, and the videos that will come out after that. But other than that, if you've made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe, and share with a friend that could find this video very interesting. And thank you for all the crazy support that you have been giving me, as I am trying my best to make out the best content I can, and I'm really trying my best to be your favorite YouTuber. But other than that, be good and know that you matter, and that I will see y'all in the next upload.